The next step we're going to talk about is fingerboards. We've got our neck basically roughed out, got the headstock glued on, got our bottom block glued on. Before we go any further with putting the neck in the box, I want to make up a fingerboard. Now I've got some already made up, but I'm going to show you how a couple different ways to cut fingerboards. An applied fingerboard gives you lots of options, different woods to contrast with. I think what I'm going to probably use on this one is a piece of mahogany, since my bottom block is mahogany. But you can do all kinds of stuff. Here's a piece of zebra wood, gives you a nice look. Some spalted maple. You could do red heart. This is some pretty nice looking stuff. Just all kinds of options, and using different woods gives you different looks for your guitars. You can start out with a maple neck and use a cherry fingerboard. All kinds of things you can do. Now you can cut your fret slots by hand using a fret saw or a type of pull saw, and just manually slot them. I use a method that, my typical method is a Stuart Mac table saw blade and a template and a jig, which I'm going to show you that in a little more detail. Again, you can do them by hand. I also do a scroll saw method, which I'll show you, but I'm going to show you some different ways to cut the slots so you know some different ways to do the fingerboards. We're going to start with the table saw. I'm going to set it up first and show you how to cut fret slots with the table saw. First fretting method we're going to talk about is the way I like to do it, since I build multiple guitars at a time. I've gone and I've bought Stuart McDonald's table saw fret blade. It's a fairly expensive tool. If you're going to build a lot, I highly recommend it, because once you set it up, you can cut dozens upon dozens of fingerboards in a matter of no time at all. It does a real nice job, and it's pretty fast. If you do it by hand, which I have trouble with because I have carpal tunnel pretty bad, but so doing it with the saw is tough for me, keeping the saw square. By hand is just, I admire folks that can do it, but I can't. The table saw blade works the best for me, and it's precision ground to the right thickness and everything. And with one of these templates that you can get from Stuart McDonald, with that and a sled jig, you can cut your fret spacing exact every time. And the nice thing with a sled jig in this is I've got like a Gibson 24 5/8 scale, a 25, a 25 and a half. You can get these for all kinds of scales and do multiple scaled fingerboards all at the same time without a lot of different layout. So I'm going to get the table saw blade in, and then I'll show you how this step works. Okay, so the table saw method, basically what we've got is we've got a sled here that has got a pin in it, and what we do is we take and we put our piece of wood we're going to use for our fingerboard. We get a little bit of double-sided tape, and once you peel off the double-sided tape, you basically just stick your fingerboard to the template like so, and then what you do is the little pin that's in the sled, you line that up with the notches on the template. Now, you can buy this template and the blade from Stuart McDonald. There are a couple other places you can buy them. I bought this one somewhere else on eBay, I believe. And then I do also make some and sell them, which will work exactly the same way. Just put it on the pin and tape it to your fingerboard. Now, this first one I'm going to do, I'm going to use this Stuart Mac template. It's a 25.5-inch Fender scale. And basically there's a notch everywhere. There's like the end of the fingerboard, the nut, and each fret. So what I do is I've got my blade set to the height I want. I adjust the little pin here. Make sure you can see that. Okay, that's a little bit better angle. And then basically all I got to do is just turn on the saw and run down each pin in the notch, and that will slot my fingerboard at the correct spacing. know about you, but that took maybe a minute less. You could time it, but cutting them like this gives you a nice straight square cut, the right depth every time. You don't have to worry about wobbling your handsaw. To me, this seems like the smartest way to do it. It's not the cheapest way, and if you don't have the table saw and stuff, naturally cutting them by hand is perfectly acceptable. But this does a really nice job, and quick and efficient. And the nice thing is, once you've got it set up, you can cut, like I said, a dozen or 2 dozen fingerboards and nothing flat. So I'm going to set up the other method with the scroll saw and show you that. I showed you the table saw method. Another method we're going to show you is using the scroll saw. Now the nice thing with the table saw is you can just stick the piece of wood right to the template and it does the layout work for you. If you're going to do it on the scroll saw, naturally you've got to do the layout work because you're going to have to see the marks to do it. So basically what I do there is I just take my same template and I mark where all my fret spacing needs to be. And I won't bore you with showing me mark them all, but once I have it all marked, I take a square and transfer my lines, and then just take a pencil mark across so that I can a good pencil line to see what I'm going to do next. And once I've got it all laid out and marked, I'll show you the next step with the scroll saw. Cutting fingerboards we're going to talk about is using the scroll saw. I found out that the thickness of most scroll saw blades is just the right thickness for fret wire. So I found by turning the blade around backwards, checking to make sure my table's square to the blade, I can cut them by hand just about as fast this way as with a handsaw, or actually faster. So let's get this plugged in here and show you how it's done. And there you have it. Okay, I showed you how to slot the fingerboard, and the only thing I've done since I showed you that is I took my fingerboard and I cut a little curve on the end of it, which just gives it a nice finished look. Now, what we need to do is establish where our box is going to go on the neck is going to be the next thing. So we've got a 25.5 inch scale, so I'm going to lay my fingerboard on where it goes and mark my bridge position. Next thing I want to do is basically just decide where on the box I want that bridge to set. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit there for you. Basically, with my scale mark on there, I know I want my bridge to be right here. So what I need to do is position my bridge with where I want that bridge to set on the box. So with my bridge marked, I usually like to have my bridge in about 1.5 to 2 inches from the back. So 2 inches from the back gives me about right there. So all I do at that point is just basically make a pencil mark on the neck for the front and the back of my box position. And the next thing I'll do is I'll lay my fingerboard on there where it goes, and then mark the length of my fingerboard, because right now it's too long. So once I've got that mark on there, transfer that across, and just take the chop saw and whack the end of that off. Okay, with the fingerboard sized, the next thing to do is basically cut our notch in the box to set our neck through. Save these little pieces of fingerboard when you cut them off, because you can put those on the back end of the neck, which gives it a nice finished look back there. So to lay our neck into the box, we basically got to find a center point. Our box is 7 1/8, so that's 3 11/16 should be center. Yep. I basically mark a center line on my box. I do that on both ends because our neck's going to go clear through the box. Now our neck, all we got to do now is just basically mark off for our neck, and it's just a shade over 1.5 inches wide. So there we go, and then transfer those marks crossed. We've got basically where our neck's going to go through the box on both ends. Now, since my neck is basically the exact same thickness of the inside of the box, I will take and cut this notch all the way to the bottom on both sides. A lot of different ways you can do that. I found this nice little wheel that you can put on a Dremel tool. Works pretty handy. But really, I think the fastest, easiest way is if you've got like one of these little Japanese pull saws. Just open up your box and cut down to it. Now I've cut this a little shy of my neck dimension, and the reason I do that is because I'll come back through here with a file and I'll open that up little by little so that I've got a nice snug fit on my box. Lots of different ways you can do this. I've seen people do it with box knives and everything else, but this works pretty good. And basically, like I said, what I'll do is I'll take, and that one's pretty good right there. This side's a little tight, so take the file and basically just work it until our neck slides right down in there. It's pretty close. We'll do a little more fine tuning on it, but basically that's what we got to do to get our neck in the box. When I get that completely fitted, I'll come back and I'll show you the next step.